Shalom, shalom. My name is Crystal. Thanks for listening. Today is part one of my journey from mainstream Christianity into Torah observance as a believer in Jesus. Y'all, I still believe in Jesus, and God has opened my eyes to see how beautifully His Messiah and His commandments offer us life, hope, and righteousness in Him. He is preparing us for His kingdom. And if that resonates with you, I encourage you to keep on listening, but pause the video. Will you pray? Will you ask God to speak to you? Will you ask the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, to bring you into all truth? Because I can testify. You can hear with your ears, but it is God who will change you. And so pause the video, pause the podcast, take your earbud out, and just turn your heart to the Father, because it is Him and His work in you that'll bring about change. Did you do it? Okay, let's jump in. How and why I keep the Sabbath. I've been a believer in Jesus since I was 8 years old, but over the past 2 years, God has transitioned me out of mainstream Christianity and into Torah observance. And today I'd like to start telling that story. Today is part 1 of 5 of this journey, and we are talking about the Sabbath, my favorite thing. I grew up in a lively Pentecostal church, and the only thing I knew about the Sabbath was that during creation, God worked for 6 days and then He rested on the seventh. And the people in the Old Testament were commanded to keep that day holy for rest. But nobody in my life did that. I didn't even know it was an option to do. And I do come from a family of self proclaimed workaholics. And so we were busy my entire childhood. I did sports in the evening, youth group, Bible study. Saturdays were whatever was going on, typically cheer competitions or family outings or movies or hanging out at home, but there was never an emphasis on rest. It was always do, 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 and it was either productive doing, like school, chores, stuff like that, or it was a fun doing. We're going to do this fun thing, we're going to bond, all the things. And so growing up, I really didn't have a concept for rest. Then, when I was 21 years old, I went to a Bible college. It was a ministry training program. And during our freshman orientation, one of the professors encouraged the students to take a Sabbath. At that time, and in that body of believers, that just meant a day off. I remember resonating with this idea and really liking the thought of it. And so I tried to take a day off from homework each week, but I was never super intentional with it. Sometimes it would be Saturday, sometimes Sunday, and sometimes not at all. Like if I was too busy, or if I had too much homework, or if there were social outings that I wanted to participate in, I would. Like it wasn't that important to me. Part of this program allowed me the opportunity to move overseas for my third year of school for like a ministry internship with some long-term missionaries. And the whole process getting there was really overwhelming. It was a lot of fundraising and paperwork and preparation and all of the things. And by the time I got there, I was completely exhausted, but the pace never slowed down. We students were put into language school. We had online classes. We were encouraged to build relationships and go explore the culture and all the things. And on top of it, we were now expected to take care of ourselves. And what I mean is like the adult things. We were cooking, cleaning, paying rent, doing all the things that we didn't have to worry about on campus because we paid room and board and we were just taken care of, 3 meals a day from the cafeteria, didn't have to worry about rent, but for the most part, we were well taken care of. And then we were put overseas to handle all of it, plus all the things, and I completely just burnt out. I was emotionally disturbed, I was spiritually disturbed, I was exhausted and grumpy and just so disillusioned with life in general. And um I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know if I was going to make it. Like, I was considering leaving, quitting the program, going home. I was just not in a healthy place, and so I did talk to people, which is good. Talk to people when you are low, and they will pray with you, and they will encourage you. And so I had conversations, multiple conversations with my site leaders. And so those are the missionaries that were living full time and welcoming groups of students in. And in one of the conversations, one of my leaders asked if I was taking a Sabbath, and I wasn't. And my excuse was, there's so much to do. I don't have time to take a day off. Like, you guys, and I was very like, or I think I had like a victim mentality, like, you guys make me do all this stuff. How dare you ask me for a day off, ask me to take a day off? But I let go of that. And he just encouraged me to not view Sabbath as a reward for doing good and getting all the things done, but as a necessary stop in the week simply because God said rest is good and he did it. And I really resonated with that as well. Jumped in to Sabbath. I reserved a day a week. Typically, it was the same day, but it would change. And what I mean is, like, sometimes for a season it would be on Saturday, and sometimes it would be on Sunday. And I tried a couple different things, but I really prioritized it. And for me, that meant no work, no homework, no social outings, no ministry projects, none of it. I would just stay at home, typically stay in bed and not do anything. Um, and I loved it. I really did enjoy it. I started to see blessing and healing from my burnout and from my low mental health. My peers started taking a Sabbath as well, and we didn't have a concept for it was really just a prioritized intentional day off, and so one girl, she did half a day on Wednesdays and another girl on Fridays, and then, a handful of us on the weekends, either Saturday or Sunday, but we all really started to enjoy it. But I loved it, and to me, it felt like a lifeline. Like, if I did not prioritize this time, I wasn't gonna make it. Like, I don't know what else to say with that, but it really truly meant a lot to me, and it benefited me so much. After this internship was over, I moved back to the States and I continued to um, keep my Sabbath. And I started to get really passionate about it and talking about it with others. During that final semester, I took a preaching and teaching course, and we had to prepare different teachings and different preachings. We got to choose like what to talk about, and I wanted to talk about Sabbath. And I think that's when I started to notice the tension of what the scriptures were saying about Sabbath and how I was practicing and what I believed about it. I remember feeling almost not confident in the commandment of Sabbath because I had the mindset that this was a gift for us that we could open, we could experience, but we weren't commanded to do it. So, how could I tell anyone that they should take a Sabbath? It just almost didn't feel right to be like, everybody needs to take a Sabbath. And I don't know why we're not, because I still believe that it wasn't a commandment for believers in Jesus, that we were free from all of that. And so I just modeled the teaching after what the Bible said. Essentially, it was like, here's this verse, and here's this verse, and here's this verse, and here's this verse. But it wasn't a full teaching because I didn't know where or how to stand on it. I knew it had been such a blessing for me, but I didn't really know or feel the freedom to talk about it with others. Anyway, the pandemic began that final semester, and so I didn't get to finish my semester on campus. I moved back home. There were seasons where I didn't prioritize it. If I got a job, I would work it on Saturdays. If I was busy, I wouldn't take a day off. If my schedule allowed it, I would take a day off, like Wednesdays or whatever it was. Like, it was not the biggest priority for me, but it was always in the back of my mind. If I didn't prioritize taking a Sabbath, if I worked too much and neglected it, I would definitely feel it. I would be exhausted, burnt out, depressed, anxious, and then I would eventually, like, get back onto the Sabbath train. Then in, like, 2003, 2004, that zone, a couple things happened that began to open my eyes and shift my perspective. The first thing is I learned that Sabbath or the 7th day was Saturday, and that from the beginning, Saturday has always been the 7th day. And so to have a day actually numbered as the 7th day meant a lot to me because it was like, "Oh, Sabbath is Saturday, and I'll adhere to that. I will keep my Sabbath on Saturdays on the 7th day." The next thing that happened is I saw The Chosen. And if you've seen it, if not, that's okay. I'll explain it. But in the first episode, one of the characters, Mary, she is delivered from demonic oppression, from Jesus. And one of her first acts of worship was entering the Sabbath. And it was a Sabbath dinner on a Friday evening. And so the sun is setting, she's preparing it. She's feeling all like nervous and stuff because Jesus is going to come. And she has other guests at her table. And it was just a beautiful thing for me because everyone in the community in the show was doing that thing, and it made me realize that for the Israelites, for the Hebrews, Sabbath was a community thing, and I started to crave that. I wanted to keep the Sabbath with others, but nobody in my life was doing that, nobody, and so a lot of my family events were still on Saturdays. I even had church events on Saturdays, and not, like, official church events, like church, but, like, "Oh, my community group is going out for coffee," or, "We're gonna do something Saturday night," stuff like that. And so life continued to be busy on Saturdays, on Shabbat, even though I wanted to rest. And so I felt the conflict of being the one person that I knew to keep the Sabbath. The last thing that happened in this era was a video from a YouTuber. Her name is Milena, and she just made a vlog preparing for the Sabbath on a Friday evening, and she was just explaining how she was preparing for it and what her family does, the traditions they have. So they do things like lighting the candle, saying special prayers, opening the word together, having a nice meal. I saw that video on a Thursday, and I decided that I was going to do this every Friday for the rest of my life. And sure enough, that next day, I prepared a Sabbath meal, a Shabbat meal, and I invited my mom. Granted, we lived in the same house, but, like, from that point, like, our Friday routine was like a movie. Like, usually we would go out to eat and watch a movie. And instead of doing that, I said, "Mom, I'm gonna cook dinner, and I wanna have a Sabbath meal. Will you do it with me?" And she's like, "Okay." I also invited my niece and I texted her and she said no, but I was like, that's okay. I'm doing this every Friday for the rest of my life. You are always welcome. And eventually she did start to come and we did Bible studies with her and her friends and it was a beautiful thing. Um, but I think switching my mindset from all those little pieces from a day off to no working to it's a community thing to Saturday all the way to sundown to sundown, Friday to Saturday. These are the little things that really started to open me up to the beauty of God's commandments. Um, yeah, that is the story for now. As I mentioned before, this is part one of a five-part series. I also will be talking about Easter, Christmas, church, how I switched from a big city church to a small little Torah keeping fellowship. And finally, I want to talk about eating biblically clean because that was like the last thing to fall into place for me. Um but yeah, if you've watched this far, I just thank you and I praise God for you. I know it's not an accident that you have made it this far. And just like in my story, there has been videos and people speaking on the internet to encourage this thing that God is doing in my life. I pray that this is that for you. Anyways, in the comments, will you introduce yourself? Thank you so much for listening. If any of this resonated with you, I ask that you would like, that you would subscribe, that you would leave a comment, and that you would share it somewhere with a friend on your Facebook, on your YouTube. I don't know. But I pray that you would help me get this testimony out so that it can reach whoever it needs to reach. And stay tuned for part two, where we talk about Easter and Passover and the feasts and how beautiful they are and how sufficient they are. Um, okay. Shalom, shalom, brothers and sisters. I will see you in the comments. Stay tuned for next week's video.